White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked recently at a press briefing if President Biden supports any changes to the filibuster. Here's what she had to say.
Does President Biden agree that there needs to be tweaks in how the filibuster is utilized?
Well, I'll first say the president's preference is not to get rid of the filibuster. Look at what we've been able to accomplish in the last 6 weeks. He's on the verge of passing a historic relief bill that's going to cut child poverty in half and create 7 million jobs. We'll have enough vaccines for all Americans by May. 13 cabinet nominees have been confirmed. We rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement. We ended the discriminatory Muslim ban. He's met with members on both sides of the aisle in the Oval, and he wants to continue to work on a bipartisan basis.
Senator Joe Manchin was asked a very similar question in an interview with Axios. He also avoided supporting any major changes to the filibuster. Here is his answer.
Would you support any kind of filibuster reform?
The only thing I have even considered or thought of is basically some through the history, how it used to be.
Making them talk.
There should be pain to a filibuster.
And
there should be pain.
And what is the pain?
The talking, basically. You
got to read the phone book or whatever.
That's it. Do whatever, but make sure you have a little bit of pain.
Very interesting. So Democratic strategist and owner of JC Strategies, Jennifer Holdsworth-Karp, and Senior Director of Policies, Rachel Bovard. They join us now to discuss. Rachel, let me start with you. I know you're a bit of a filibuster savant here. What does Manchin mean whenever he talks about bringing things back to make it more painful? Does that entail a 60-vote cut or not? I mean, in general, how did you view that statement as well as Jen Psaki's in the White House's?
Well, what Joe Manchin is talking about is already possible. Forcing a talking filibuster is available to Chuck Schumer in the Senate. The thing people don't understand about the Senate floor is there's only 3 things that are ever happening: a vote, a speech, or a quorum call. And in the absence of a quorum call or a speech, a vote happens. And so if, Republicans are filibustering and they're not on the floor talking, Chuck Schumer can put the vote immediately. He doesn't because the Senate lives in this stasis called a quorum call. So they're all complicit, right, in making the Senate do nothing. But senators just frankly don't understand their full power with the filibuster or how to break it. And I think Joe Manchin's actually reflecting that. What he's talking about is already possible. If Democrats want to force Republicans to the floor, and they should, I'm a fan of procedural warfare in this way. They should force Republicans to the floor. They can. They don't need to break or reform the filibuster to do it.
Jen, what do you make of that? And also, I want to get your reaction to what Jen Psaki was saying there. She was like, look at what we've already accomplished without having to change the filibuster. But yeah, you had to do it through reconciliation. You barely kept everybody on board. And also, by the way, in that same interview, Joe Manchin said he's not doing anything else in terms of an infrastructure bill through reconciliation without having Republican support as well. So it kind of looks like if they aren't serious about changing or reforming or getting rid of the filibuster, they're kind of stuck in terms of a legislative agenda.
Yeah, I think that Jen Psaki was telegraphing to the Democratic majority what it was that she wanted, what the president wanted to get across. And I think that this goes along the lines of the president doing a very good job of not participating in what I will affectionately refer to as the Washington story of the day, right? You got some of the same comments while impeachment was going on about the president's preferences and what he would prefer to see happen and what he would like to see happen. And I think this is a way of him staying above the fray. I think it's one of the reasons why he has the approval rating that he has right now. They've done a very good job messaging about the administration's wins so far and how they've actually helped people, as opposed to, some type of opinion on arcane Senate rules. I agree with Rachel. I am also a fan of procedural warfare, but actually in another way. I'm not entirely convinced about ending the filibuster. And I say this not because I don't want to win. Of course I do. I would love to just throw the rules to the wind and do whatever Mitch McConnell did when he was in the majority to make sure that we get our agenda passed. But democracy reform and returning to normal was one of the main themes of Joe Biden's campaign. And I think that's what he's trying to do. I'm concerned about ending the filibuster because, as I've predicted in the past, I don't think Democrats are going to be in the majority forever. We barely have the majority now. I am concerned about what happens to us when we're back into that position. As Rachel so aptly pointed out, there are things that the majority party can do when there is not a quorum call or a speech. You call a vote. you're stuck. So what are your options? I think we need to answer that question before we rush into ending the filibuster. And if there's a good answer there, then I'm completely on board. But right now, I don't see it.
What do you think, Rachel? Trump urged McConnell over and over again to kill the filibuster in order to get a lot of his agenda through. McConnell completely refused. Where do you fall on this question?
Well, Trump was wrong. Democrats were wrong to nuke the filibuster under Harry Reid. Republicans were wrong to nuke it when they did. Look, the thing about the filibuster, the macro view of it is actually, this is counterintuitive, but it is designed to force consensus. It is designed to make, unpopular causes or minority causes popular. This is the most important tool that progressives and conservatives, any sort of wing of the party, has in the Senate, because unlike the House, where the majority can just steamroll the minority without listening to them, without giving a crap about what they have to say, in the Senate, one senator or a group of senators can say, no, I deserve a seat at the table. You have to listen to what I say. If you want me to vote with you, you have to pay attention. And so all throughout history, minority causes have been given voice via the filibuster. And so I do think it's a very important Senate tradition for progressives and conservatives. It's the one tool they have to make their voices heard. I think it would be a detriment to the Senate to make it a minor league House by eliminating the filibuster altogether.
I'm sorry, but I love you guys, but you're both living in a total and utter fantasy land. I mean, there is no bipartisanship. This bill that just went through reconciliation has like 80% support, and not a single Republican voted for it. The Senate, just by how it's structured, is already an anti-democratic body. I think if you have power, you should be able to pass your agenda. And yeah, if the next party wins and the people don't like what you did and they give control to the other party, they should have the ability to undo those things. But the fact of the matter is, look, if you pass $15 minimum wage through the Senate right now with a majority, nobody's going to roll that back because it's going to be popular. Ultimately, we have to recognize that we're living in a different era. There are not 60 votes to do anything in the Senate. And if you accept this idea that, this fantasy land idea, we're going to gather 10 Republicans, we're going to talk to them, we're going to get them on board, you're just living in a different world that is not reflective of the reality that we're in right now, Jen.
So I don't think it has anything to do with bipartisanship. If you take just the reconciliation from the last bill out, there have been a series of accomplishments without using the filibuster. So I think that, what Jen Psaki was trying to telegraph was we can get this done without participating in the story.
How? Because Manchin has already said we're not doing reconciliation anymore. He walks away. That's it. You're done. I mean, really, the Biden administration, if they don't reform the filibuster and they don't get Manchin to go along with reconciliation, they are not going to pass one single other significant piece of legislation. That's it.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying on a basis, which is why I said before, I think we need to ask the question, how do we fix these rules in a way that protects the minority, even when you're in power? That question still remains to be answered. I'm not entirely sure I have the answer. But until that question is answered, what is the alternative? I think we give away our power by ending the filibuster rule.
What do you think, Rachel? I mean, there was a common critique from the right on the same thing, echoing much of Crystal's frustrations. Hey, we voted for a wall, didn't get a wall. Hey, we voted for this, we didn't get this. Hey, we voted for a new trade deal. All we could really pass through is USMCA or NAFTA light. How exactly do you succeed from the right as well from this perspective?
So I think a lot of my answer to what Crystal is saying is process. I've talked on the show before about how the Senate doesn't vote anymore. Nothing happens in the Senate. You get, 6 votes a year and it's one or done. The Senate historically has never operated like that. And in reality, a lot of really, unpopular causes became popular causes because the Senate just voted incessantly, right? In the Senates of the early 90s, they would pass 20, 30 bills a year without the filibuster ever being utilized. And it wasn't because it was a different time. It was rank partisanship, but it was because everybody got an amendment vote. The minority usually got more votes on amendments than the majority did. And at the end of the day, senators didn't have a reason to filibuster at that point. They said, okay, well, I had my say, I got my vote. And also the public was watching, right? The public would watch who voted on what, and they'd watch this process play out for 3 weeks. It was a lot harder to hide at that point.
But Rachel, let me also say, and you know that this is the case, Mitch McConnell totally changed the way that the filibuster is used. You're right, it didn't used to be that every single bill you just had to assume had to get 60 votes. It was used infrequently, it was used strategically, and so things actually worked. McConnell under Obama decided we're going to obstruct on every single thing, and it became the assumption that everything had to get this supermajority in order to get it passed. I mean, that's the reality of where we are, is there is no more like we're going to have comedy and goodwill and these norms of God. Like, that's over. So I think that we're stuck with a body that basically does nothing except what they can cram through reconciliation, unless you get rid of or at least reform this filibuster rule, in my humble opinion.
What do you think, Rachel?
Go ahead, Rachel. Well, you can respond.
I'm curious.
Go ahead.
I'm curious.
Well, look, I agree we're in a different era. I would put it on Reid as much as McConnell. I came up in the Reid Senate, and under Obamacare, some of these norms really started to break down. The incentives are to do what you say. I think it's going to take, if we're ever going to save, I think what is a really important Senate tradition, it's going to take people who are willing to buck the incentives. But I do disagree. I think that you can get this done in a way. If you just opened up the Senate, I think you'd see a lot more actually bipartisanship than you see now. I do believe it. I know you don't.
Well, hashtag open the Senate. That's what we get that.
Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, guys. Great discussion. Seriously.
Thanks. Well, more rising for you after this.